How to Create a Glitch, Monologues, Season 4, Chapter 3. This is the third episode of Season 4 of How to Create a Glitch in the Matrix, Monologues. In this episode I'm going to be discussing a warning about acting against conventionality, as required by this methodology. Suffice it to say, the purpose of this episode is to give a caution regarding the potential consequences of straying too far into antisociality. There is only one sin in the context of simulation theory. It is the sin with the gravest of consequences. It is the refusal to accept the status quo, to play the game, to live the role that you have been assigned. This manifests in a number of ways. First, it inculcates a lack of care or attention to one's actions. More importantly, it betrays a lack of empathy. It is tantamount to rejecting your privilege, which is even worse than accepting it, because it recapitulates itself. Hence, in How to Create a Glitch in the Matrix, I talk about rebellion and I talk about playing the role as the pathway toward escaping a fabricated reality. But in truth, it is only when that reality holds you in contempt that you would even want to escape it. Nevertheless, there is nothing more sure than the grounding occasioned by the rigidity of a role-based existence, following the strictures and conventions of natural law and the conventionalities of your time and place. Hence, the sanction of society and the simulation is restrained only by one complying with the most basic tenets of conventionality. In other words, you may choose to live in a reality which is fabricated, to witness the unusual and unconventional, but you do so on borrowed time, for eventually the strictures of the system will kick in, and the sanction of your action will follow in due course, punishing you, or drawing you into the pattern of those conventionalities. In effect, what I am saying is that the goal of every glitching actor should be to delay the inevitable sanction of the system for as long as possible, be it through social pressure, social tension, or merely coercion, or physical sanction in the form of the law. Rebellion or conventionality circumscribed must be the goal of every glitching actor, but only inasmuch as it is possible to do so without straying into sanction. For the system reacts against those who try to disturb the status quo with consequence. Hence, it is necessary to act according to the role that has been assigned, to use this ethos to get inside the system, to bring it down. The second idea I'd like to put forward in this podcast relates to the use of outs in social situations to preserve the consensual reality of an actor. In a previous episode, I wrote about how we use outs to preserve the consensual nature of an exchange by unconsciously excusing ourselves from situations which are inconsistent with our consent. What I neglected to mention is that others also use the creation of outs to preserve unconsciously our perspective of them. In other words, people will give us outs to preserve our emotional equilibrium, to preserve our perspective of them and the content of their identity. The more outs we give people in a social context, the more freedom we give them to define themselves in the context of our experience. The path which gives the greatest freedom to another involves give them the greatest number of outs in social conversation. This permits them to define themselves in the context of your experience, while excluding you from certain facets of their experience. That's the end of the podcast for today. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment and subscribe.